Hey, do you ever get that queasy feeling when your client asks you about interest rate and you know you're about to get shopped? You know that pit you get in your stomach? Not good. Yikes. Hey, I'm Elysia Stobbe, your Mortgage Millions mentor, and I help loan officers and branch managers make twice the money and work less hours. So what I want to share with you today is how to overcome rate objections, how to handle rate objections confidently, right? So this actually just came up, and it's amazing how we get triggered or react, or maybe you don't. Maybe you got no problem with this at all. But I think it happens to all of us, especially, when you've already worked on a deal. Up front, one thing, awesome. But after you've worked on a deal, or maybe you didn't address rate up front, or shopping for rate up front, and you're in a deal. I just actually had a coaching client of mine clear to close, and the borrower brought up rate. Yikes. Ouch. Did not go well. And then the other day, I did a pre-approval for a client, sent it over, went over the payment, everything, mentioned the rate. They put in the offer. They didn't get the house. And then 2 days later, the wife called me. I was working with the husband. The wife called me and wanted to know all about rates. And I gotta say, immediately I was a little triggered. I thought I was already talking with the decision maker, but clearly not. Something to be cognizant of all the time with your clients. Who is the actual decision maker? So anyway, turns out she's the fact checker, which is awesome. So after I got over my initial little, it's always best to address these questions calmly and confidently, right? You know whether you have good rates or bad rates. If you have bad rates, you're used to dealing with this all the time. And if you have good rates, you may not encounter this so much. But when you do, again, it's important to handle it calmly and confidently. So I thanked her for calling me. I said, I appreciate your question. It's very important. I want you to feel comfortable, as well as your husband, in moving forward and working together to help you get this new home. Because, of course, even though they didn't get that offer, they're definitely relocating. So it'll come up again. So, again, I'm glad we had the opportunity to address it right now. So I said, well, here's the rate from the other day. That was 2 days ago. Let me just pull up our rates today, see where we are. And I explained to them that not only do we make sure that our rates and pricing are some of the top in the country, but I also myself look at other interest rate sources, and I check them as well. And if there's any issues, then I call our pricing desk, our secondary desk, and see what else we can do. So I always have their best interest in mind. I also took that opportunity to talk about the other things that are important when choosing a loan officer and an institution besides interest rates. Because we all know the bottom line is we all can get within an eighth or quarter of each other in rate, right? That's just the way the industry is. Thankfully, actually. But what really sets us aside is actually customer service. So there are 3 important things I like to point out. And I will come back to rate, by the way. So I like to point out that, for starters, Fannie Mae statistics show that less than 50% of loans originated actually close. Wow. So you have a 50-50 shot of actually getting to closing after you've been pre-approved or pre-qualified. Pre-qualified is one of the major problems. And then you may spend $400, $500, $600 on an appraisal. You may spend $200, $300, $400 on a home inspection, on a pest or WDO inspection. So easily you could be out $1,000. So while rate's important, let's just set that to the side. Because really, you want to make sure you close. And I'm sure you have great credit. But if you're self-employed and you're not familiar with the guidelines, since everything's been updated for COVID, there are many, many additional hoops that you have to jump through. So think about who you're selecting as your licensed loan officer, mortgage loan officer to work with. So that's one piece, right? Let's talk about getting you to closing. That's the most important piece. Then I also address communication and how often we update them and how often we keep in touch with them. Then I also, and we have a whole series of milestones that we go through that are automated, and then actually my assistant, the processor, will reach out to them, and I'll make phone calls to get them updated, keep them updated as well. And then last but not least, let's talk about closing on time. That's super important. Yes, we're going to close. Yes, we're going to have clear communication. And then let's talk about closing on time. This is important, especially people are relocating across the country right now, right? All their stuff is packed up in a moving van. They think they have their utilities on for the closing date, and then, whoo, what if you don't close? That's kind of a drag. Are they parking that moving van outside a hotel room? That's not what you want. That's not worth the stress of 1/8% of interest rate better. So I address those three things up front. Then, fourthly, I invite them to look at my customer survey reviews, which will back up everything I said. Closing on time, clear, consistent communication. Do you see how I kind of led them down a path and then offered facts and third-party validation to back it up, right? So one more reason you want to go and get video testimonials, written testimonials from your clients at closing, after closing. At closing's the best with your realtors. And then I addressed interest rate. So she was saying that her son just relocated. So they're moving from the Mid-Atlantic to Florida. And she was saying that her son just relocated to the Mid-Atlantic. And I said, fantastic. When did he close, or when is he closing? And she said, oh, he just closed yesterday. And I said, fantastic. So I asked her the rate, and she told me. And it was a little bit lower than ours. And I said, well, do you know if that's a 15-year or a 30-year? Do you know if he paid discount points for that? Tell me about his relocation. Do you know when he locked that interest rate? Because as typical, spring, summer home buying season gets busy. What happens? Interest rates tick up just a little bit. All right? We know that's going to happen. So actually, it turned out that he locked his rate about 30 days ago, which rates were a little bit lower. We're still unclear as to if it's a 15 or a 30, and there is about a 0.25% gap in there. And I said the other thing that could take that up is tell me about his relocation. Well, he's actually getting relocated by his employer. So a lot of those package deals actually come with discount points. Especially in the Mid-Atlantic, where paying discount points is much more common than paying discount points in Florida is. Not so many people pay discount points. So those things are regional, and you need to know what's going on locally where you are. So we talked about that, and then she sent over the information. I said, I would love to see a copy of it. I'll go through it with you line by line, and we'll make sure you are 100% comfortable moving forward with me, because I appreciate your business. I understand that your realtor referred you to me, and she said, oh yeah, we don't want to go with anybody else. We just want to make sure we're getting the best rate. And I said, I completely understand. I'm happy to help you. We looked at the information. We went through everything. Definitely, there were discount points involved. And I said, if you want to pay discount points, you absolutely can. Totally up to you. And then I also explained the lock process. If you have a contract for 30 days, we can lock for 30 days. If you contract for 45 days, the rate might be slightly more expensive, so we can lock for 45, or we can float until you get to within 30 days. I also explained that the interest rate is not locked until you actually are under contract in a purchase, since the interest rate is tied to the property address. So it was a great opportunity. It was one of those calls that kind of, oh, I just really didn't want to deal with interest rate right now, right? but it's super important. It's a $500,000 deal. That's pretty important. It's important for my realtor. It's important for me. It's important that I take amazing care of my clients and of my clients' referrals from my realtor referrals from that I get the opportunity and I'm grateful to work with. So it was actually a fantastic conversation that started out with angst and ended up wonderfully, because when I put aside that slight angst that I still get after all these years, I was able to deal with it logically. And super important, always put yourself in your client's shoes, right? She started off by saying she wants to work with me, she just doesn't know the rate and she's concerned. It's my job to alleviate those concerns and take fantastic care of her. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. I hope you got great value out of it, and I'll see you soon. Click on the follow, subscribe button below.